It's straight talk with no chaser. It gives the people a voice, empowers you with a choice. She gives you straight talk, no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. She provides a platform of growth and gives a dying people hope. She gives you straight talk, no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser.
Welcome, welcome, welcome to a special edition of the Straight No Chaser Show. This is your host, Rhea Ray Harris, and I'm so grateful to be with everyone this evening. My guest today is Ms. Chantel Branch. She is not just a speaker, but she is an author. This is her book that is coming out next month, Decisions by Chantel Branch. Thank you so much for being a guest on the Straight No Chaser Show. Now, let's talk a little bit about where you're from. Are you from Chicago originally?
Yes, I'm from Chicago.
And as they love it, what side of town?
West
Oh,
Side.
see, there you go. The west side, about where about?
I grew up around North Avenue and Central, the Austin area, North Austin
Cool.
area,
And
Kenwood.
I'm gonna say Roman, who's gonna be on next with the Drive at Five, is West Side also. He is down for life, as they say. Some of my other friends. So we're gonna talk a little bit about what motivated you to write decisions and our expectations of decisions, as well as your career as what I am calling a professional speaker. So, how did we get to the point that we felt we needed to write a book?
On January 2016, something just came upon me and I wanted to volunteer my time somewhere. And I'm like, where could I volunteer? And so I thought of volunteering at the women's shelter. I'm like, what better way to give back? I was a victim of domestic violence. Let me give back. I can help somebody. I was strong enough and healed enough to go back and help someone. So that was just the time that I decided to go back. And when I did, they always ask you, would you tell your story? And I knew that even before going, so that's what always kept me from going. And when I got there, I just began to help other women. I began to, talk about how you can get out of that relationship, how you can get out of that situation. And I wanted to be able to share with a lot of women across the world, across the nation, and different cultures and different ethnicities, that there's hope. You can find healing, that you can break free, that you should never give up. And I wanted to write a story in a way to share so that women can, somehow break free.
Is Decisions autobiographical, semi autobiographical, or a work of fiction with your background as a foundation?
It's a work of fiction. I just wanted to captivate people and them gripped with reading, staying, with the book, not giving up, because people will pick up a phone and watch a video quickly, but they'll read a book slowly. So I had to write it in a way that stay with the book, just stay along this journey so that you can see hope and you can see faith. It's a journey of faith.
Now, that's a powerful statement. So, when you say a journey of faith, because a lot of people in a domestic violence situation, when they are the victim, feel that they have been abandoned not just by people, but also by God. So, when you state that it is a journey of faith, can you elaborate upon that?
I think you have to read the book.
See, now.
That's the crux of the book. You have to read the book.
So, but for your personal journey, Because like I said, this is a work of fiction. So in your personal journey, was there a point where you felt that there was no one there, that there was no hope, that there was no out?
Yes, I think a lot of women feel that. 1 in every 4 women feel that, when they are victim. Um, but I do believe that people are sent along your journey and along the way to help you. And when they come, you have to be open and willing to accept that help. And I believe that because domestic violence is not talked about enough, that people are always quiet. They don't want to tell what happened to them, and they need help.
When you are speaking on domestic violence, because we don't deal with the holistic view of it, and holistic in not a good way, because if there are children in the household, they are affected. The extended family, if they know, is affected. And actually, and honestly, and people don't like to look at it this way, the perpetrator of the violence is affected also. Because anytime your anger, frustration, disappointment, whatever the emotion is that has you so out of control that you assault someone once, nevertheless on a regular basis, and someone that you profess to have love for, to be in love with, there's still something seriously wrong here.
Yes, I agree.
And we don't have those conversations outside of usually the punitive aspect of it, which is, for those of you that know me, know I work at domestic violence court as a Cook County adult probation officer. And so we're dealing on the back end. But if there is some help on the front end, so much can be averted and changed. Because statistically speaking, children that are raised in an abusive household very rarely have, from the onset, when they get to dating ages, quote unquote, normal relationships. They're typically either the abusers or the abused. And that makes it a multi-generational and cyclical problem, because they tend to have children,
Yes.
and then those children carry
Yes.
on the cycle. So purpose, I'm so grateful that you wrote this book, because it takes courage to leave. It takes a lot of courage to leave, because again, statistics show that most victims that leave, that is the time that they get killed. And you're leaving to save your life. But when a person who is that enraged and feels like they have to control another person by that degree is losing control, some of them go over the edge.
Yes.
So in your having been a speaker, because explain the program with whom you work on one hand, because you also speak for yourself as a person. But when you speak with the, let me get it right, the Family Shelter Services and their Speakers Bureau,
Mm-hmm.
what is it that you do there? You see the impact being?
I'm a speaker with them, so whatever events that they have, I usually, sometimes it's just to volunteer my time, but when I go and speak, it's more so to survivors, maybe donors. It can be a room full of working people on their lunch hour. Different type of events that they have that I go and speak at, but usually I like to give the reason why you should continue to help, to see that there are people that can come out of domestic violence situations, and that when we're reaching back to help someone, that your contribution and your help will help this shelter, will help this woman that's in the shelter, her children, with beds and food and clothing, because when many women leave their home, they leave with nothing. They don't have time to pack a bag and to get some money. They just have time to get out right now, because it is life or death.
And when you are speaking with donors, once they hear what you have to say, what is their response?
A lot of times when I'm speaking, and after I've finished speaking, people come up to me and they want to, sometimes they thank me or they want to share their story with me. And I think it's therapeutic and it's a part of their own healing to be able to talk to someone, because a lot of times victims don't always go right to their family members, their sister or their brother, or even sometimes when they do, the family may be overwhelmed from helping them. It may be too much, so then that's when the victim shuts down. They need someone to talk to, so they share their story with a perfect stranger, and it's healing for them.
And because they know that you are coming from the same situation and have survived it, not only is it a hope that they get in your story, but it's also being able to speak with someone that they know is not judgmental. Because as you express, so many family members and associates and friends either take the position of, I told her to leave that dude a long time ago, or if the victim is a man, I don't know why he stays with her anyway, or whatever the situation is. And beaten physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, whatever the case is, in your home, and then to go to someone else and to be beaten again, so to speak, even if it is verbal still hurts. It's a lot. So there are not a lot of opportunities for victims to have that conversation and to get affirmation that it is okay to talk about it, that you are a human being and you don't deserve to be treated like this, because we don't have a lot of victim services, contrary to popular belief, willing to find offender services. And like I said, and that's after the fact. It would be so much more beneficial to have services when you first start seeing signs. That I mean in the school systems.
But first, you have to know what the signs are. And we have to teach the signs. So it goes all the way back to generations, like you said, but it must take leaders and officials. And that's what Decision does. It helps the reader to identify with the signs, to see it. If you see someone, you know, it's 1 in every 4 women. So it's somebody, you know, it's somebody that you're working with. And it helps the people who can't fathom why she just doesn't leave. But Decisions helps them see why she doesn't just leave. And that's why it's so important for me to get the word out about Decisions and getting the book September 12th, 2017.
Well, you said something important in regards to why didn't she or he, depending on, again, the gender of the victim, just leave. There are a multitude of answers. There are a multitude of situations. And again, part of the reason I stated I would do this special segment is not just my familiarity with the domestic violence situation, but with the knowledge that after all this time, to me, so many people that don't get it. I've been in domestic violence as far as the courthouse is concerned since 2000. And in the 17 years, I would have thought, oh, people know what this is by now, know what to do. And it has not slowed down. The traffic has not altered. The issues have not changed. And the lack of recognition in some people, and the recognizing, but what I call victim blaming, has not really changed any. So, in your opinion, if we are to teach people how to recognize the signs of domestic violence and what to do in response to seeing those signs, where would we start?
That's a very good question.
I know Illinois just passed a law mandating, if I recall correctly, hairstylists and barbers to learn about the signs, which I thought was very interesting because they felt, rightfully so, a lot of people I don't know about the barbershop, but I've heard about the barbershop, but women, when they are in the hair salon, tend to talk to their stylist as if she is a therapist. They tell the story about whatever's going on. And if I'm sitting here, if I'm a licensed cosmetologist, okay, I'm doing hair, but you're coming to me about the fact that somebody's beating you half to death. what do I do at that point? I'm sure a lot of beauticians, stylists, barbers, etc., don't really know the answer. So I think that
Well,
is very important.
I think I'm qualified to answer this question.
All right.
I am a licensed cosmetologist. And interesting too that they chose that particular license, but at the same time, we're not just hairstylists, we're counselors. People do talk to us. We watch families grow up, we watch women have babies. We are with the mother and the daughter and the children and the family and the husbands, if or boyfriends. It is a place that they started, and we don't necessarily know the right place or the correct moment, but we have to get started because there's so much work to do.
That's why I was stating to me, and I'm sure there are trainings for educators. I don't know what it is. My father's deceased, but my mother's been out of the system for quite some time now, so I'm not really as in tune with it as I used to be. And my son is out of high school, has been out for quite some time also. But on a high school level, because sadly, I do see a lot of they're not the majority, but I do see a lot of young people that are in domestic violence court. And I wonder if someone had seen some signs when they first started high school, by the time they got out, not only are we not dealing with a victim or an abuser, but we have turned them into a person that has a different mindset. So definitely on the high school level,
Yes,
and maybe even
absolutely.
on the junior high school level.
Yes, middle school, young kids begin to start relationships and they imitate what other kids do. So it can go far back. Definitely the high schools where they're beginning to really get into relationships or try to form serious relationships. It can start in the health room, just like, under sexual education. It can be domestic violence education. It can be, and not only that, teaching self-value, self-worth, who you are. You should know that you matter, that you're worthy, that you're valuable, so that you make good choices, good decisions. And then on top of that, know the cycles of domestic abuse. Know the signs. Know that if you get into a relationship with someone, you can be able to identify it right away. Indicators. Don't stay when you see the signs, because if it hasn't changed, it will not change.
When I think about it, because I have a girlfriend, I'm not going to go into great detail because it is not my story to tell, but there was an assignment that they had for class to watch a particular movie that night, come back the next day and talk about it. And the movie depicted some family troubles. And I want to say she was fourth or fifth grade, maybe, let's say fifth grade. And she came back to school and told the teacher, I think that's me. And the teacher responded appropriately, and that situation was addressed. So that's what I'm saying. You may be able to go as young as junior high, because even if it is not a child that is in a relationship, because they do start having play boyfriends and play girlfriends in junior high school, but if they recognize that this is what's happening with the adults in their home.
Absolutely.
Because trust and believe, they see and hear it, even if you don't think they see and hear it, they do. So that will be something to give them some security that there's some help coming. Because I don't know how a child wakes up in the morning, goes to school every day, fearing the violence when they get out. It's just mind-blowing to me. So actually, beyond speaking for the Family Shelter Services, you speak as you.
Yes, I do.
So when you are contracted as a speaker, what organizations are asking you to come out? And again, what type of response are you getting?
This past summer, I spoke at Longwood High School, and they had a summer camp with Nikki Bruce. And I went in and I just spoke to 3rd through 8th graders. And my lesson was on leadership. And if you knew you couldn't fail, what would you do?
Wow.
And so we made a diagram. And from me, I just spoke about it. And I told them, I told them if I knew I couldn't fail, I would write a book. But I never told them that I wrote a book, so they still don't know. And maybe they'll know.
So they're gonna know soon.
They're gonna know soon. But I wanted to give them an encouraging word, and they need that motivation. They need to see someone that looks like them going somewhere.
Being positive.
Being positive.
Now, and that's young, but I'm going to have to take that from you. If you could do anything and knew you would not fail, what would you do?
Yes.
Because even thinking that term, we already assume that the failure is at the end of the road. So again, training set,
Yes.
which is inconquerable necessarily, but if your mind is strong enough, you're less likely to succumb to a lot of negativity in the world. So
yeah,
that's an early start on training them without knowing without them knowing that they've been trained.
Yes.
Now, I know you said that you've also spoken at organizations such as fraternities and sororities.
Mm-hmm.
And in that, are you speaking more so on domestic violence specifically?
Or depending on what their event entails, I usually speak on leaderships and women empowerment, and also self-worth.
Let's talk about when you were the keynote speaker in April at the annual 2017 gala for the Family Shelter Services. How much money was raised?
$234,000 was raised for Family Shelter Service that evening.
That's a nice amount of money.
Yes.
And how did you feel to be a part of that entity?
I was just glad because when I was first going into the shelter, it was the first year that it was built. And so it was a beautiful place. And I had heard so many horror stories, and you have to sleep with a knife and watch your stuff. And it was just a blessing. It was the biggest blessing. So I wanted to go back and be a blessing. And for that to happen, I knew, because the government was behind, they haven't been paying, organizations, and everybody is broke, and there's no funding. So for that to happen, that was, I was just happy to be a part of a blessing for somebody else, some woman that is breaking free, that is driving in her car, that is alone and unsure, but that she picks up a phone and she calls and asks for help.
And have somebody answer.
Yes.
And have somewhere to go.
That's right.
We put the book back up. I love the cover. Decisions. There is a launch party.
Yes.
And that is September 12th.
Yes.
Give us a little more information.
September 12th, Decisions the Book launch, 6425 West Grand, that's Chicago, Illinois, 60707. And you can find more information out at Decisions the Book on Instagram and Facebook. And you can also email us at decisionsthebook@gmail.com.
This is the vision that you have to go not just through Illinois, not just through the Midwest, not just through the United States of America, but you want this book to go worldwide. And why is that?
Because domestic violence is worldwide. It's everywhere. It's in every culture. It's all over.
And you want to let women know, despite the culture differences, despite the language barriers,
absolutely,
despite the socioeconomic statuses,
whether you're rich or poor, it does not matter. The color of your skin does not matter. Anyone can be a victim. Anyone can be a victim.
And you can also be a victor. You can
That's
be a survivor.
Come on out.
Come on out. So to have you speak, they would contact you through the same
Yes,
places.
at decisionsthebook@gmail.com. Decisionsthebook@gmail.com.
And we are looking for, in the future.
Yes, absolutely.
So this is the debut novel, Decisions, by Chantel Branch, but this is not the last novel.
This is only the beginning.
This is only the beginning. Well, with that, Chantel Branch, I thank you so much for being a guest on this special segment of the Straight No Chaser Show. And I look forward to not just this book, but the books in the future, and as well as hearing you speak, because your message is powerful and it's important.
Thank you so much for having me. And everybody, don't forget to check out at Decisions the Book on Facebook and Instagram. And September 12th, 6425 West Grand, Chicago, Illinois, 60707.
And we will, now I have to be on air that day, so I can't be there, but I will promote it because it's important. And with that, we are going to end our special segment. And as always, for the Straight No Chaser Show on intellectualradio.com and iHeart radio station, dedicate yourself to the truth, no matter the cost. This is your girl, Rhea Ray Harris, signing off.
It's straight talk with no chaser. It gives the people a voice, empowers you with a choice. She gives you straight talk with no chaser. 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 She provides a platform of growth and gives a dying people hope. She gives you straight talk, no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser.